welcome everybody. We'll let other folks just kind of join as they are able. Um, my name is Corey Miskell. I'm with the Latino Coalition for Community Leadership. I'm the Deputy Executive Director, and we are really stoked about opening up this new opportunity and this incubator program. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy days. I will toss it over to my colleague and co-host, Jamil.
Hey guys, thank you guys so much for joining us today from wherever you are today. And we'll find out here shortly in a second. But we appreciate you guys and we're super excited about this awesome opportunity that we get to present to your organizations. And so without further ado, we'll jump right into it.
Yeah. So our first request for you is if everyone could just get into the chat, and if your name is different than the handle that you have in Zoom, if you could give us your name or add anybody that might be with you behind that screen that maybe isn't named in your Zoom name. And also give us your organization name and what state you are in or what state you are serving. That would be really great. We've had some great response from across the nation. It's really neat to see the diversity. We are going to go through some really great information for you here today. We will absolutely leave time in the at the end of the webinar for any questions that you have. If you have a question, you don't have to sit on it. Feel free to put it into the chat. We will make sure to go through the chat before the end of the webinar and make sure we address any questions. So with that, we will get started. Just a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to talk about Latino Coalition for Community Leadership, who we are and what we do. We'll provide you a brief overview of the community-based Reentry Incubator project, which is funded by a grant through the U.S. Department of Justice and Bureau of Justice Assistance. We're going to provide you a brief overview of CBRI, our acronym for this initiative, of the proposal process, some of the activities and services we would be engaging, and what startup looks like. We'll also highlight some important proposal details, so things you might want to consider, what is absolutely minimum required versus what kind of is a preferential sort of requirement or a preference that would really kind of boost your application. We'll go over key project dates, and then, like I said, we'll definitely leave some time with questions. All right, so digging into Latino Coalition. Latino Coalition for Community Leadership is a grant-making intermediary. We are a nonprofit, and we are dedicated to advance resource equity and community well-being. And really, when we talk about resource equity, we know that it's well documented that nonprofits led by people of color in marginalized or traditionally excluded communities, including rural areas, don't have access to the same type of funding on the same level as other more mainstream nonprofits. And that can look like a number of different things. Not only is it underfunding, but it's like creating equity in accessing those resources. That can be philanthropic from foundations, from individual donors, including government resources and grants, such as a municipal, state, or federal grant. And so our mission and the reason that we were created was to help nonprofits access those resources and course correct that inequality. We do that through our mission to find, fund, form, and feature nonprofits and marginalized communities, meeting the needs of individuals and families. And so here you can kind of see what we affectionately call the 4 Fs. The first is find. We are seeking out grassroots, emerging faith-based and community organizations serving low-income youth and families. Typically, these are organizations that are an organic part of the community that they serve. So they are led by people who live in the community, worship, shop, participate in that community in a day-to-day basis. They are typically not organizations that are kind of just helicoptering in for one grant and then leaving with the resources or leaving the community once those resources have dried up. The Latino Coalition, after finding those organizations, we seek funding. So we kind of go get money to give money. So we don't provide direct service. We'll talk about what our direct service is in a second. But essentially, we want to build your capacity and fund you to provide the direct services to individuals and families. And so we seek that funding from a number of different resources. In this particular circumstance, obviously, we are supported by a generous grant from the federal government. We also work with state resources, with foundations, with individual donors, all of those things. And then we re-grant that to the community partners, what we refer to community partners instead of subgrantees. And so that's kind of like the basic part of our intermediary function. But we've asked our community partners, like, tell us what this experience has been like working with Latino Coalition. And by far, all of them said it was the funding that got us to the table. It was the forming that was probably the most impactful. And so for Form, what we are dedicated to doing is providing that capacity building and technical assistance to nonprofits to help you grow the nonprofit to whatever your vision is for it, to find some stability, to really diversify your infrastructure so that you have staying power within your community. And so we do that by providing basic infrastructure. So think about this as like fiscal systems and data systems. We provide technical assistance for actually implementing a grant program and measuring your outcomes, all of that. We provide training and capacity building or professional development for the individuals within your organization, kind of at all levels, from executive leadership to maybe those in your financial shop, down to direct program staff that are working in direct service. And then we're looking at capacity building. And for us, that means just the way that you might wrap around or provide wraparound services for participants, we're trying to wrap around you as a nonprofit. And so we'll look at all sorts of different dimensions of nonprofit health and sustainability, and we'll ask you about your goals and then kind of help you to achieve them. And lastly, feature is for us giving voice to vision. This is more than success stories. Those are really important. And we, of course, want to feature the impact of our work. This is also about, sometimes our communities are talked about, but not with. And we find it really important that we have a seat at the table, that we participate in deciding what the strategy is to fix a complex social issue that's affecting our community, that we have a role in maybe deciding financially how that's supported before those financial decisions are made. And so we're really excited to share some of the ways that we've done that. Some of those are highlighted in the videos that you will see posted on our website and also in the RFP guidance. If you want to get to know us a little bit better, that would be a great way to do it. So I want to share with you a little bit about our impact and why you might want to work with us. So here I have a great graphic. It comes from one of our videos and kind of tells the story of some of the community partners that we have worked with before. In this particular circumstance, one from Healing Urban Barrios, which is in California. We started working with them in 2018 when they were just kind of like an organization of volunteers, really an executive director that had an idea but was funding it through her own pocket, right? And still had to have a full-time job somewhere else. There were 0 funders, there were 0 FTE, and there was 0 budget. We were the first funder at the table, as we often are at Latino Coalition. And you don't need a fiscal sponsor, for example, to work with us if you're a nonprofit. Over the course of a few years, in 2023, we are thrilled to report that Healing Urban Barrios has a budget of $5 million annually. They have 10 different funders, including Latino Coalition, so we're no longer the only one at the table. And they have 28 full-time staff. They're having an incredible impact on their community, and they've been able to expand their services and go not just like broader, but also deeper, which is really exciting. So we fund deeply, we fund sustainably, and really this grant program, the Incubator itself is designed with the intent to help community organizations become competitive for grant funding. We can't necessarily promise this growth and the same scale for everybody, but we can tell you in our experience, since is the learners are the leaders. And so if you are interested in walking alongside us and welcoming us into your journey, this is something we do see as possible. On average, we're seeing our community partners grow 400 to 500% in the first 5 years.
So the following bullet points speak to the outcomes that the CBRI will have on your organization. And we're going to use it acronym CBRI, but for this grant, that is the Community-Based Reentry Incubator. So I just want to give a brief overview of, again, what the expected outcomes are. And I'm also going to touch on the spirit of the CBRI and its overall arching goal and intention. So, as far as the outcomes, the bullet points are going to speak to being able to build programmatic financial and organizational capacity of grantees to provide sustainable reentry services, improve organizational, programmatic, and financial management capabilities for grantees, elevate the ability of justice impacted leaders to build awareness and educate policymakers on specific challenges and needs of people re-entering the community, and strengthen the grantees' ability to provide reentry services in their respective communities by providing technical assistance and financial support through the CBRI initiative. So the overall arching goal and intention of the CBRI grant funded by the BJA is to help build capacity, capability, and sustainability among community and faith-based organizations. So, sub-awardees funded by the grant will meet the needs of people returning home from incarceration and will ultimately be able to apply for and manage private and public grant funding in the future. So, similar to what Corey just spoke about when it came to healing urban barrios, that speaks directly to that growth and ultimately their ability to be able to seek out additional funding sources so that Latino Coalition is no longer the only funding source for their organization. The CBRI is funded by a generous grant from the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So that's the BJA. The BJA wants to see community and faith based nonprofits as a critical part of the community safety infrastructure in our nation. Assistant Attorney General Amy Solomon has been leading this work. And I want to leave you guys with some quotes that, again, speak on the spirit of where this whole incubator is coming from and their thought process and as far as outcomes and who's specifically serving this community or who's specifically serving the, the participants that this grant intends to serve. At OJP, we have been seeking new ways to advance the twin goals of keeping communities safe and promoting equity in our approach to safety and justice. We are taking into account the historic underinvestment in underserved and marginalized communities, and we have been working to expand investments directly in these communities. And the organizations that reflect them and are designed to serve them are located within them and are closest to the problems we seek to solve. We submitted this commitment in a new policy blueprint and a new mission statement to provide resources, leadership, and solutions to advance community safety, build community trust, and strengthen the community's role as co-producer of safety and justice. The focus on community is emphatically deliberate. We believe this approach can be especially impactful if we resource the right intermediaries. For example, the Latino Coalition for Community Leadership is an intermediary for both CBI and the Second Chance Grant. They support programs with fewer than 10 full-time staff and assets of less than 500,000 and are prioritizing organizations led by staff with lived experience. One of their goals is to equip these small CBOs, community-based organizations, to apply for and manage grant funding in the future. And they're having great success. The organizations they're working with have seen, again, 400 to 500% increases in their budget size in just 5 years. In this spirit, the CBRI was created, which is a partnership of the Latino Coalition and the BJA. So, what can you expect from the community-based reentry incubator? Individualized organizational capacity building with measurable impact. What is that? Grantees will receive individualized capacity building to focus on building aspects unique to their organization. This approach will be dynamic and address a wide range of topics from program model, fiscal management, data systems, organizational culture and leadership, and more. The Latino Coalition will walk each organization through a nonprofit organizational assessment and help you develop a capacity building plan. Now, I noted some of those different areas, some of those different topics: program model, fiscal management, data systems. It is not just those different areas. There are tons of areas that we can address, and through our organizational assessment, we'll be able to help your organization find which goal specifically meets your need. What to expect: training and technical assistance to implement evidence based and practice based approaches for community based reentry programs. The trainings will be conducted virtually and in person on a periodic basis and can include case management and planning, strategic planning, developing your logic model, organizational policies and internal control, and more. This will include participating in the National Reentry Workforce Collaborative Conference, Reentry Specialist Certification for up to a certain amount of staff per grantee. You can also expect to receive reentry ecosystem development strategies, including peer network and lived expertise. Grantees will learn how to collaborate with other community reentry peers to formulate strategies for the larger reentry ecosystem in your community. And more broadly, grantees will learn how to deploy various strategies, including developing MOUs, cross-training and professional development, advocating for policy and system changes, plus more. These activities will be deployed through virtual and in-person gatherings. We anticipate a national cohort of about 20 partners, so 20 grantees. So we will likely schedule in-person convenings to occur generally on the West Coast, East Coast, and somewhere central in the US, such as Denver. It is possible that the first convening event could be as early as December 2024 in Philadelphia. In addition to these group trainings, the LCCL will meet one-on-one with each partner at least monthly to offer tailored support, set capacity building goals, implementation assistance for concepts learned in training, and addressing other ad hoc priorities. And so my job as the program manager will be to make sure we're setting those goals through our organizational assessment and getting with you on a monthly basis to make sure we're meeting those goals. The information you see refers to eligible entities who are eligible to receive the CBRI grant. Nonprofit organizations with both length and breadth of experience serving people pre and post release from incarceration with reentry services. Nonprofits, including those without a 501c3 nonprofit designation from the Internal Revenue Service. For-profit organizations or projects with a fiscal sponsor and units of government are not eligible to apply. All applicants must have a UEI number issued by the System for Award Management, that's the SAM, at the time of the application and maintain this UEI for the duration of the project. If you do not have a UEI already, we will have further information during this webinar to give you information on how to directly apply for that UEI so that you can apply and can receive the grant via Latino Coalition. Additional eligible entities: culturally specific reentry organizations. Culturally specific reentry organizations means a reentry organization or reentry program within an organization that serves a particular cultural community, is primarily staffed and led by members of that community, and demonstrates intimate knowledge of lived experience in the community served. In other words, organizations should reflect the populations that they serve. This will allow them to cultivate an environment that operates in a way that is directly beneficial to the populations that they serve. There are also small grassroots or emerging reentry organizations. The size of the organization must be less than 10 full-time paid staff and or have assets of less than $500,000. Reentry programs that are under the umbrella of a larger organization will also be considered if the program meets the same definition. The following attributes are important to the application and can strengthen your application scoring. Leaders and or leadership team members with lived or shared experience. Leadership is a position within the organization that has authority in organizational decision making regarding the reentry services provided. Lived experience is direct firsthand experience with incarceration. Shared experience is direct secondhand experience with incarceration, such as a parent, child, spouse, life partner, or other such loved one of someone that is or has been incarcerated. Existing staff that are available to regularly participate in and apply for information, excuse me, participate in and apply the information learned from CBRI activities at the organizational and programmatic level, and leaders that persuasively articulate their commitment to full and active participation in the CBRI activities throughout the grant performance period. How to apply. One aspect of the application process is ensuring that your organization has a UEI number. This UEI number can be received by registering via sam.gov. If you do not have a UEI, you will need to use sam.gov to get a UEI because it is required to apply for this grant. If you already have a UEI, then you do not need to complete this step. We also have step-by-step instructions on our website via the RFP page. This webinar will also be recorded and posted as well. So you'll have multiple ways to get to that. We'll also speak towards the end about different office hours and different ways to get in contact with us if you have any questions about registration as well.
And Jamil, can I just jump in there that we wanted to note we caught a bad link in our RFP. So if you downloaded the RFP guidance document like yesterday, please note this updated link. This is the good one. And then all the other links, including the video tutorial on our website, are good. But you want to make sure that it's a sam.gov link and you do not have to pay. This is a free process to register. Thanks,
Corey.
Jamil.
Some more information on applying for the CBRI grant. Our application portal opens July 1st, 2024, and the application portal will close after 200 applicants or on July 31st, whichever comes first. The applications must be submitted online through the Latino Coalition's Given Data platform, which is on our webpage, on our RFP webpage as well. No other forms of submissions will be accepted. So again, we will have step-by-step instructions as well on our RFP webpage that gives you direct screenshots on how to submit via Giving Data, but we'll also have additional means to get in contact with us if there are any issues or any questions when applying. We anticipate notifying successful applicants of the award by September 30th, 2024. And I just want to also go over a few timelines and dates, important timelines and dates that are going to be coming down the pipeline when it comes to CBRI. And so the deadline for submission, again, is going to be 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, July 31st, or when 200 applicants are received. So whichever comes first. What this means is don't delay. So you guys are great in getting to our applicants webinar before we open the RFP submissions on July 1st. And so do not delay, because if 200 applicants apply as soon as it opens, then we're gonna have to close it. And so this means that they can close early. And so the faster, the better for you. And again, you will have the ability to ask any questions ahead of time and prepare as well. And just some more important timelines and dates. And so we did release the official RFP on June 11th. We're currently today on June 27th going through our second webinar. We had an additional one yesterday. We will be posting these recordings of our webinar for your reference after today. Our application portal again will officially open on July 1st. Our applications again are due July 31st by 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, or when 200 applicants are received. So whichever comes first. We're anticipating notifying grantees of their award by September 30th, 2024. And we hope to have the memorandum of understanding out, the MOUs, to the grantees in between the dates of October 1st and October 15th, with those signatures due by a potential date of October 25th. And the start date for the CBRI will begin November 1st, 2024, with grantee orientations and training and different webinars and meetings that we're going to have between the dates of November 1st to November 30th of 2024, with the overall completion date of the CBRI of June 30th, 2028.
Okay.
All right.
I am here. Yeah, no, thanks, Jamil. And I can be a little bit dense. So we did figure out that on June 30th at 11:59 is 1 minute away from midnight on July 1st. So that's when the application opens, 1 minute after 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. You do not have to wait an extra 24 hours. I needed that explanation. I hope it's beneficial to somebody else. Okay, so grant awards. Over the grant period, think of this as it's an incubator program, an accelerator program, kind of like a leadership program. And so the total value here is $140,000 over a 45-month term. So again, you're starting kind of like in November of 2024, this year. And of this amount, what we'd like you to consider in your budget is that of the 140, you allocate $20,000 each year, so $60,000 total for travel, because we are going to meet together. We're going to learn from each other. We're going to do this work in partnership. And so those in-person meetings are really expensive, really important. We want you to be able to bring your team members with you. So it's not just one person, but your leadership team and whoever's leading your reentry services, if that's not just your executive team. So please allocate $60,000 for travel. Also, please allocate $5,000 for attending a potential conference with the Department of Justice with other Second Chance Act subgrantees. That would be really exciting. So we want to set aside some resources for that. And then lastly, Jamil talked about, we're doing all of this like training. We're going to do an organizational assessment. We're going to think about what your vision is for your nonprofit and help you adopt capacity building goals. And then we want to work with you shoulder to shoulder to help you achieve those goals. And that means access to us as experts in nonprofit management, but also the resources to support that. And so you have $25,000 in 3 different installments, so $75,000 total that you get to direct to your capacity building. You might not have a today, and that is absolutely fine. But give it some thought. Like, we would like to still see it in your budget. We're not going to hold you to it. You might go through the organizational assessment and decide it's not what you put in your budget, and you can modify that. That's completely legitimate. But we want you to kind of be thinking about, what do you want to invest in? So $75,000 total, 3 different installments of $25,000 each. The grant funding covers a 45-month period, as we mentioned. And so we'll start, again, most of your activities will start in November with orientation, and then we'll start doing that organizational assessment in 2025. The LC is kind of just trying to balance the practical aspects of doing a competitive request for proposals, but also providing enough time for you all to reasonably use the resources and think about what your capacity building is, do that work, and then still spend them before you get to the end of your term. And so that's kind of why we structured it as this 45 months. So we're going to start essentially October 1st. We'll be signing a lot of MOUs and kind of getting up and going, and then we'll end on June 30th, 2028. The funding is on a cost reimbursement basis, and so that's important to know. These are federal resources, and that's the way that federal grants operate. That can be incredibly taxing, especially for small and emerging nonprofits. So we want you to be aware it's not $140,000 just dispersed in cash at the beginning. You will have to essentially kind of spend the resources and submit a receipt to us, and then we'll pay that back to you. However, We know that that process doesn't work. That's part of what creates the inequity of grant funding. And so we're doing two things at Latino Coalition to help bridge the gap. The first is we can do a cash advance so that you have the resources to go buy your computers or pay payroll or whatever that looks like. And typically we're looking at like 1 month of the grant. So think about that. If you'd like to do it, you don't have to, but it's something that's available to you so that you have the cash flow, because it kind of takes money to make money, right? The next thing is we aim for a very quick turnaround. And so if you've ever worked with perhaps some other government agencies, sometimes those turnarounds can be really long. We aim for 10 days, but definitely less than 30. Sometimes if you submit a receipt and we have a question about it, there might be a little bit of back and forth. If it's really clear, we can be really quick about it. If there's some questions, we're still aiming to get those resolved so that we can have that money hit your account within 30 days. So think about that. There's some strategy we can, of course, walk you through if you're looking to make a big purchase or pay something big like payroll. We have some ideas around how that can happen. Funding is dependent upon grantee participation. Like we said, the learners are the leaders. And so we really are excited about your engagement. If you're maybe not coming to the meetings, not coming to monthly meetings, or constantly rescheduling and really not participating, we might want to have a conversation of like, is this a good fit and is this a good time for you to be participating in the incubator program? And there are times where we decide, no, that's not the case, and we're just going to close our relationship for now. So please bear that in mind. We are asking for your engagement. All right, next question. I see there's a couple questions in the chat. We will get to those, so I'm not ignoring them. I mentioned that $25,000, you're going to have 3 installments of that. Again, be thinking about what some of your capacity building needs are. I'm guessing you have a sense of what that looks like for your organization today. Again, it may change and that's totally fine, but we wanted to give you an example of some common costs that you might be able to spend it on. So of course you can spend it on reentry program expenses that align with your capacity building plan, such as a program curriculum. Say you want to launch a financial literacy program for returning community members, and you need to purchase the curriculum, purchase the workbooks, and maybe get a staff person certified to deliver that curriculum. We could pay for those costs, right, through this $75,000. So be thinking about that, any type of like building your programmatic or your program model, that's absolutely eligible. Expenses related to technology and software. So if you're in a rural community and you want to get like all the bells and whistles in Zoom, you could do that through this investment. If you need a case management data software to track your data, track your outcomes, and measure your impact, that's really important. And you could absolutely use the resources there. Same thing with your fiscal data. Managing federal grant awards is no joke. And we definitely want to make sure that you're doing that outside of just an Excel spreadsheet. Our goal, if you are a volunteer-based organization, is that you have payroll, that you have paid staff, and you have all the fiscal infrastructure to support receiving a grant and managing it well. Supplies such as computers and printers are absolutely eligible. Professional services such as accounting, audits, legal consultations, something else. I'm sure there's always an idea that we don't think of. We do ask you with consultant services, just bear in mind there are some federal regulations related to these resources. And so a consultant cannot be paid more than $650 per day or $81.25 per hour. So just bear that in mind as you're negotiating or budgeting for some of those consultant services. And then lastly, cost allocated expenses, something like insurance or staff wages, or maybe a portion of your executive director's salary, which is really hard to cover under other grants. We could absolutely be picking up portions of that or other payroll. So, and compensating you for your time in participating with the CBRI. There are always expenses that I don't think of. So please, like, put it in there. Ask us, come to one of the office hours. I think there's always a lot of good ones that we don't think of. And we're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. There are a few, however, unallowable costs. Those are food. We cannot pay for food through federal resources. I'm sorry for that, but it won't be allowed. Equipment. We are not talking about computers and laptops and monitors and printers. We are talking about a purchase of equipment that's over $5,000. So if you want to start, say, a forklift training and buy a forklift that costs $18,000, you would not be able to do that through these resources. So you're looking at anything like less than $5,000, that's going to be an eligible use and not considered to be improvement according to OMB guidance. Construction is not eligible, and capital expenses are not eligible for these resources. We follow, and we're kind of beholden to the guidance, the uniform guidance provided by the Office of Management and Budget. We are here as a technical assistance provider to help you navigate that. And so again, my recommendation is put it in your budget, come to the office hours, ask us a question, but we will definitely help you to get your budget on point if you are selected. Oversight. Okay, so there's some small like fine print as a part of this grant, like there always are, especially with government work. And so we just wanted you to be aware of those. So in addition to strings that come attached with federal resources, we are also kind of required to make sure that everybody is in compliance with the various regulations for federal resources and the contractual requirements of the grant. And so what we do is we will come in and we'll help to monitor your compliance with those things, but we see this as a capacity building exercise. In addition to just checking to verify that we're all good, we're going to help you build the processes that you need. For example, a lot of times if you have staff on, if you have staff and paid employees, you would need to like verify their eligibility to work in the United States. If you're not familiar with that process, it's something that we could really help you with. But we would need to just verify that you're doing that. We see this as like, let's help you build the infrastructure. So then when we come in and actually officially do the monitoring, we're all good to go. And there's no surprise. There's no hide the ball. And additionally, then you know you have checked all the boxes to be eligible for federal funding and competitive for those things. And so that's going to be part of our relationship over the next 45 months. If you are required to have a financial audit, oh, sorry, go back one more. If you're required to have a financial audit, then we are asking that you just report that to the Latino Coalition within 30 days of it being issued. This is a federal monitoring requirement, so we want you to be aware of it. So again, there's no surprises. Not all nonprofits require a financial audit. So again, this may not apply to you if you're not at the revenue level that you need in order to queue one of those, and that's okay. Thanks. All right. Technically speaking, we will issue a memorandum of understanding, which is the contract that confers your grant award. And again, what's really important to us at Latino Coalition is that there is no hide the ball. There's pure transparency. And so while we will be sending that MOU, if you are selected, you can read all the terms of that MOU that are currently listed in the RFP guidance document. It's under that section that says fine print, please read me. So if you have questions about those things, please don't hesitate to reach out. There are things that you would need to be aware of if you're awarded the grant, such as insurance requirements, and those are all outlined in that section of RFP. How to submit. We are going to launch the application portal. It is in Giving Data. This is the actual website that you will use and go to. It's not open yet. If you click on it, it won't work yet. It will 1 minute after 11:59 p.m. June 30th. So 12 midnight, July 1st. Jamil kind of went over some of these requirements, but again, we just want you to have the checklist. So the following documents are required in your submission. You have to actually answer the application questions. Those are all posted on the website as the application question handout. So if you'd like to get started on those, please do so. You can start crafting your answers right now. Again, nonprofits are eligible entities to apply. We're not looking at government agencies, for profits. You don't need a fiscal sponsor for this. As a nonprofit, we would like you to be registered in the state where you are operating. So if you could include your nonprofit registration, that would help expedite our eligibility screening. And so that would be really helpful. If you have an IRS 501c3 designation, we would love the determination letter that you probably have saved in your files or framed on your wall. It is not required, so if that's not applicable to you, don't worry about it. If you do have it, it would be awesome for you to upload that with your application. It'll just kind of help speed things up. And then lastly, as we mentioned, you do have to get that unique entity identifier issued by the System for Award Management, or sam.gov. Again, that is at no cost. There are services you can pay for that will help you to register, although there is a tutorial on our website and we're happy to walk you through that process directly. So don't feel a need to invest in those resources. It can take a little bit of time, but there's no reason necessarily for that to prohibit you from proceeding in the application for being delayed or something along those lines. Just please do not wait till the last minute. That will compromise your ability to be eligible. If you already have a SAM registration, please just verify it's active. If we go in and find that it's inactive, that would be ineligible for the grant consideration. So just make sure it's active. A good best practice would be just download a copy of that proof or a screenshot of it, upload that, and you know you're good to go. We know you're good to go. Okay, there's a step-by-step tutorial of giving data. It has visuals. It's a slide deck, but it has a screenshot of every single screen you're going to encounter in the process. And you can find that on our website at latinocoalition.org/CBRI, and then just click on the Giving Data Submission tutorial. So if you want to like study up a little bit, that would be your sneak peek at the application portal. If you just want to wing it, it'll be open on July 1st at midnight.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned before, I think our availability is going to be the most, is one of the things that we get the best feedback on as a Latino coalition. And we want to make sure that we're available for you during this process for any questions that you may have. And so, how can you ask questions about the CBRI initiative and the application process? For general questions, you can reach out to our email at cbri@latinocoalition.org. You can also check our webpage at www.latinocoalition.org/CBRI for additional information that may include like FAQs or some of those step-by-step instructions that may answer the questions that you have before you even get to us. But again, we are still available at that email address, but also be sure to check our webpage for those FAQs and those different tutorial instructions. There's also more information available on our webpage, community reentry based incubator, because it is live now. It's just live. Excuse me, just got a little tongue tied there. www.latinocoalition.org/CBRI. All of the information you need to apply. Again, giving data tutorial, sam.gov registration. Everything is on the webpage, ready to go. I will also be holding office hours, all times Mountain Standard Time, for you and anybody else who has questions via Zoom. And so I've set up 4 different office hour days with times. These times and days will also, and links to the Zoom room will be on our webpage as well. And it'll just give you a chance to pop in there if you have any questions about application, any questions you may have. I will be live on those days at those times. Okay. And last but not least, it has been an honor to be selected to facilitate this grant as an intermediary. We feel totally blessed as an organization. This is really at the heart of our mission and what we do. And good luck. We're really excited, and thank you guys for coming today.
All right, we're going to pivot to questions. There's already some in the chats. So I will start reading those through. The very first one, we'll just take them in order. Would you like to see the organization budget as part of this grant submission? Well, on two levels, yes, we will ask you for a budget as part of the application, and so you'll see those fields. But also, if you are qualifying as an eligible entity of less than $500,000, we would like to see documentation of that. Like, how are you kind of justifying that? But remember, it's an either or, and we're getting a lot of questions about that. So it's 10 FTE or $500,000 in total assets, or both of those things, right? So you can qualify under one or the other as well. The other, because we kind of want to make this accessible, is it is possible you have an umbrella agency and an emerging reentry program under that umbrella agency. And so then the criteria of 10 FTE or $500,000 applies to that program, not necessarily the umbrella agency. So in that circumstance, say your W-9 or something along that lines might reflect more than $500,000, but we would want to see documentation that that reentry program is less than $500,000. So it depends on how you're qualifying, but yes, a budget might be helpful for that criterion. For the budget, are you looking at items that would grow our capacity? Example, staff education and development, increase salary to retain staff, new FTE, consultants to help with projects and or direct program expenses, helping clients pay their fines and fees. That's the first question. Let's take that one. My answer to that is, yeah, all of those things would be eligible with the exception of fines and fees. Typically, we cannot pay fines and fees through federal resources. But all of those things are, I think, really great examples of just kind of be thinking about, what are some organizational capacity things that are really hard to pay for through other grant programs? How is this scored? We will be convening a panel, perhaps multiple panels, depending on the number of applications we receive. And we will have evaluation criteria. We obviously can't give you that exact criteria, but we can tell you we've gone over today, and in the RFP, it'll tell you exactly what is required and then what's preferred criterion. And those would be really important to focus on and speak directly to those things in your responses. Next question. Jamil, do you want to take this one? Any ideas on how quickly you could reach 200?
Great question. No. And so the feedback is you did an awesome job of getting here to this webinar today. And so you have the information. We would say get on it as quickly as possible and continue to ask questions to gain clarity because we're available. That way you can submit the moment that it opens at 12 a.m. Pacific time.
Jamil, I think you know the answer to this one too. Are there word or character count limits for application questions?
Yes. No, there will be no word or character counts for any of the application questions. And so you will be good to go there. And then it looks like we have three more in the Q&A. Danielle asks, is this opportunity only available for organizations with less than a $500,000 annual budget? And so Danielle, with that, if you have a program, and we spoke about this, if you have a larger organization that has a budget of over $500,000, but a program within that organization that's emerging, so a smaller program, and you can, I would say, narrate kind of that program's budget in its infancy, and you can explain that to us within the application, then it would qualify as a reentry program that's available to receive this grant.
Yeah. And remember, it's an either or. So you could also qualify as having less than 10 FTE for your total organization or your reentry program. So it's possible you have more than $500,000 in your annual budget, but you're still eligible. The criterion here is our attempt to reach emerging and grassroots nonprofits. One of the questions we've received a couple times before is also like, earlier in one of the slides, we talked about nonprofits that have length and breadth of experience, but that seems counterintuitive intuitive to also being an emerging nonprofit or a startup and that type of thing. And what we're speaking to there is that your staff have experience. This might be, like we said, we've often worked with organizations that had no full-time employees when they started. Some organizations filed their nonprofit status just so that they could apply for the grant. And that is absolutely okay. What we're still seeing is that they had 20 years of incarceration experience or plenty of experience in other areas as a volunteer where they were serving this community and really dedicated to it. What we don't necessarily want to see is like, oh, I just decided to do this and I really don't know what I'm doing. That's maybe a little too early. We'd like to see a semblance of like a mission statement and some interest and passion for the work. And that often is demonstrated in some of the experience of your leadership team, of your staff members, or of your organization, even if it's not necessarily receiving grant funding right now. You were youth. We are youth center focused on providing after-school programming, tutoring, mentoring, mental health support, community resources, life skills workshops. If our services are more focused on providing preventative services for youth before they are system impacted, would we still be eligible for this opportunity, or do you have other opportunities for preventative services? Jamil, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, Brenda, I would say we speak about lived experience in direct having direct lived experience, and also secondhand experience. And so I think what we would look at is your does your youth center focus on either one of those two areas when it comes to reentry? Um, are the youth right? Are they either secondhand or firsthand when it comes to experiencing incarceration from a reentry standpoint? Corey, would you
Yeah,
agree?
I think, yeah, the only thing I would add to that to complement is we have worked often with organizations that are incredibly impactful in the reentry space, but don't necessarily have a organization name or mission statement that says reentry. So a great example that we used yesterday is we have one organization that's a soup kitchen. And they started as a soup kitchen, but what they found is that they were serving a lot of folks that were justice impacted. And so now they also have a reentry program. And that might be kind of in this space, Brenda, where you are working with youth, and I'm assuming that some of those definitely could be impacted by the justice system. And so in my mind, I think apply and find those connections and be able to articulate what that looks like for you all. It is reentry, so it's not necessarily prevention. But again, there's like this continuum there. And I think you could probably do a great job of articulating that. If you would like to do some one-on-one, please feel free to reach out to us directly, and we're happy to have a more detailed conversation with you. The last question is from Aiden. Are the proposal questions available online? Yes, they are currently online. So just go to the application questions handout. It is linked on our website. It'll download a PDF. Those are the exact questions that will be in the application portal when it launches. Did we miss any? Any other questions? All right. Look at that, 4 minutes to spare. Oh, we have one incoming in. Did we already mention the character limit?
Yes, no character limits, Danielle. You're
That would
welcome.
be dangerous for me as a grant writer. Okay, well, we are totally committed to staying on for an extra 4 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to hang out with us. Otherwise, we will let you go, give you the gift of time. We will send a follow-up email with the slide deck and the recording once we get it posted on our YouTube channel. So expect that to come through from us. If you have more questions, consider attending the office hours or reaching out to our email directly, cbri@latinocoalition.org. With that, Jamil, you want to close us out?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all. Take care.